Now, as noted, this presentation is for honors students. However, you are welcome to share this with your undergraduate fellow students as well, and any students at coursework master's level will also benefit from this specific presentation, as the application is the same for all module codes within my UNISA. Also note that the focus is here for you as students on how to utilize Turnitin. Any lecturers present in this session, you are welcome to go through the session with your students, but do note that there is a separate training session for lecturers as well. So let us move on to the next slide. Okay. Turnitin Originality is the official product that is used by UNISA to check the originality of student work. This is done in an effort to guard against any form of academic misconduct. That would include things like plagiarism and ghost writing. However, our focus is always to encourage academic integrity and for original work to be delivered. Academic integrity at UNISA is a core value, and it is most important that you do understand that UNISA does not tolerate academic misconduct. Please make sure that you are familiar with the different policies and rules of the institution, and especially make sure that your My Life email accounts are active, as this is the formal communication method with the university. Turnitin is integrated, so you do not have to request Turnitin. Turnitin is part of my modules, my exams, and my SBL, and it would run automatically when it is required for an assignment, an assessment, an exam, or a task that you need to fulfill to meet the academic objectives for that specific module code. Note, not all of your submissions would require originality reports. This means that there is not going to be a Turnitin process for every single upload that you are going to make. So it will depend on the type of the task, whether Turnitin will be run on that submission or not. Before we continue, I need to offer a warning here regarding the submissions of your work. You need to upload your work yourself, only in the formal UNISA submission space. In other words, there where you need to log in with your My Life email credentials. This is really very important. You need to safeguard your work, and we can only protect your intellectual property generated at UNISA when you upload your work within the formal UNISA space. It is also deemed unethical to upload academic content in different institutions when you are not registered for formal qualification in that respect in an institution. So please do protect your work. And this means that you have to stay clear of people who offer so-called Turnitin services. They say, they promise you, oh, they will generate a good Turnitin report for you, etc., etc. And then they, when you submit your work, they get access to the content, and these people are very often paper molds in disguise. In other words, they would take your work and they would sell it off to other individuals, and that is going to compromise the integrity and the originality of your content. Also, do not share your work with a family member, a friend, or a colleague. Okay. Simply upload your work within the formal UNISA space. Any duplicate submission will compromise the originality findings within your document. What you will need to do to continue with the Turnitin process in UNISA is that you have to accept something that we refer to as the Turnitin EULA. This is the end user license agreement. This is to protect your profile within the UNISA space, and you need to click on I accept the Turnitin EULA when this is required. So you will notice on my modules, it will ask you to accept the Turnitin EULA, and again on my exams, or if you are working on my SPL, then you need to accept the Turnitin EULA. It will not ask you every single time to accept the EULA. When you've accepted it on the site, it is going to say, thank you for accepting the Turnitin EULA, and this means that going forward, your submissions, those that require Turnitin, will be processed. And you will be alerted in the future. So if you upload to a different module code, your next assignment, it will tell you Turnitin EULA already accepted. Okay, so this means that it recognizes your profile and it will protect your authorship within that submission. To prepare your files for Turnitin processing, most of the time your lecturers will advise that Turnitin is applied to a specific assignment or assessment, and that you need to follow Turnitin instructions. You can only upload in Microsoft Word, specifically with a file extension .docx, or an Adobe PDF created file. In other words, a file with true text, not a scanned or imaged file. Okay, I will explain this shortly to you. To prepare your document, and to ensure that an all-inclusive report is run for your work, you need to have a title page, or if you do not have a formal title page, or you are not expected to use a title or cover page for your submission, at least include a heading, as that assists with an internal protection of your authorship. That heading needs to include your name, your student number, your module code, which assignment or assessment number this is, and the date. Make sure it can be on one single line at the top of your document, that you have that included. Okay. Then the bibliography or the reference list also needs to be included in cases where that would be applicable to your specific task for which you are submitting. This confirms the study or the research content. Okay, so that helps to affirm the process that you followed and the sources that you consulted to produce the content. Okay, note that your submissions are permanently stored in Turnitin. So you will have to make sure that you upload the correct version of your work to the correct option. So do not upload under the wrong module code or the wrong assignment or assessment option. Okay. If you've submitted your work, it will be saved in the database, and that is to ensure protection of your authorship. Okay. Your file conversions. In cases where you are required to upload in PDF, you need to convert your work from MS Word to PDF using the Adobe PDF option. This is really easy. If you go into your Word, MS Word document, you've prepared your submission, you go to File, and then you save it as Adobe PDF. This will ensure that your work is converted as a true text document, and you can store it in a dedicated folder on your device before uploading to UNISA. Please do not use any other distillers or converters to create a PDF document. These have the same effect as a normal scanning machine because it literally scans the document, and that would not be processed. Okay, so it will be reverted back to you. Okay. What happens when Turnitin receives your documents? Turnitin will compare the content of the document to a database, and it will always also run various integrity checks on the content of the submission to identify any form of non-original content. Please note, it is not a plagiarism report. So do not call it a plagiarism report, because this is not what Turnitin does. Turnitin checks the originality of content, and it will identify the portions of content that are not original and not truly authored by the individual who prepared the document or submitted that specific document. So it is going to be an all-inclusive report. So it will check things like internet repositories, publication repositories, as well as student paper repositories. This is referred to as submitted works within Turnitin. And it does not only check within UNISA, it also checks against other universities in South Africa, as well as universities on the African continent and other continents worldwide to produce the report. For this process to take place, you need to allow 48 hours for the whole UNISA process. This means you have to allow a window of 48 hours to get your Turnitin report. When you upload your document to My UNISA, it will see that your lecturer requires Turnitin processing for this specific submission, and it will then send your document or your file to Turnitin. When it is received on the Turnitin side, it will be processed, a report is generated, and then My UNISA will collect that report and attach it to your submission. Okay. Once it is attached to your submission, it will be directly available to both yourself and your lecturer. Okay. You also have the option that you can do a draft as well as a revision and a third and final attempt before the due date. Okay. This is very important. If you want to make use of this privilege to upload firstly a draft and then a revision or a final submission before the due date, you have to consider the fact that each submission will take 48 hours to be processed. Often it is less than 48 hours, but you need to compensate for that. So a good guide would be, if you want to do this, upload your submission 2 weeks before the due date. That will allow you enough time to obtain the originality report, review the report findings, and then you can work on your document, and you can do the necessary revisions, go back to My modules, upload your revised document, and that will create a new report for you. Again, you can view that report if it is necessary to still make some revisions. You have a third opportunity to upload by the due date. Please note that all the reports received before the due date are interim reports. Okay, so this is a privilege that you have, that you can view an interim report on the content of your document so that you can learn from that. Maybe you might find that you have relied heavily on one specific source, or you have used a lot of quotes, for example, within your specific document. Then you can address that. If you are struggling with paraphrasing in your own words, for example, you can attend to those kinds of things before the due date. Then, on the due date, all the submissions will be rerun. That means your final upload will generate a final report on the due date, and that is the report that is going to be used for marking or grading the specific submission. So on the due date or directly after, you might notice an error regarding Turnitin and your submission. However, that is during the time that the report is finalized. Once it is finalized, you will be able to view the report as well. But there are no further submission options after the due date. So please do make sure of what this process entails. As long as your work is submitted and it says queued, okay, you need to be patient, okay, as this can take up to 48 hours, and this is not an error. If it says queued, it means it is in progress. It's on its way to Turnitin. We've not received your submission yet. It means that UNISA has put this into a queue to go to Turnitin for processing. It should not, however, queue longer than 48 hours. If that does happen, please alert your lecturer, because they need to inform the UNISA IT department to check on the queues that are being sent to Turnitin. So just be aware of that. It might even say pending. That also means that it is in progress. Okay. If there is a message like this one, report unavailable, and you see a question mark, a blue circled question mark, click on the question mark. It will give you a little pop-up. It will tell you what the message means. So in this case, report is unavailable because it could not generate a report for the submission as it did not contain true text. This was a scanned document. So it was a handwritten scanned document. So for Turnitin, you are required only to upload typed responses, and they need to be in true text. So simply follow the instruction on how to save as Adobe PDF from MS Word, and you will have no challenge in this specific regard. That specific instruction is also captured in the frequently asked questions list, and this will be shared with you together with the recording of this training session. So always make sure that your file requirements have been met. So this is a submission error. It is not a Turnitin or a UNISA error. It is the file that was uploaded that did not comply with the necessary requirements. Okay. Once the report is generated, you will be able to see the similarity index. So that would be a percentage in a color-coded block that is attached to your submission. Okay, so please note that this is a similarity index. It is not a plagiarism percentage. The color coding also bears no meaning. In other words, it doesn't mean if it's green that it's good or if it's red that it is bad. In the FAQ list, we also give you the instruction on how to open the report so that you can view the content by clicking on the similarity index. Okay, so do remember that that percentage indicates how much is not original in the document. It doesn't say that you plagiarized. It simply says how much is not original in the content of the specific submission. That would include anything that is not original to you as an author. So obviously, if it contains copied text from other sources, that would be highlighted. But it is also going to highlight discipline-related terminology. It would highlight names or titles. It would highlight direct quotes. It can potentially also highlight matches in your reference lists, any form of ghostwriting or templates that might have been used. So that which is not original to you would be highlighted. It is not necessarily a problem. It doesn't mean that you have to change anything but was highlighted. Like in the case of a name or a title, you cannot change that. So that would be confirmation of the names or the titles that would be used. Okay. So this is an example of what the report might look like. So when you've opened your report, on the left-hand side, it is going to display the content within the document that was received. It would be highlighted in different colors and it would be numbered. The column on the right-hand side is going to show your overall similarity index, and then it will give you a breakdown of the different matches. If you have a look on the left, you will see that the blue highlighted text in my example here is marked with 1. It matches source number 1 in the column on the right, and this is then also blue. So everything, right, if I were to scroll down through this whole document that is highlighted in blue and marked with a number 1 would mean it matches source number 1. And we can see that source number 1 has a individual percentage of 26%. This means 26% of the content matches number 1. I have an example here from number 3. We've got here a little number 3, purple highlighted text. It matches source number 3, and this one says 15%. So that would mean everything highlighted in purple, marked with a number 3 in this document, matches source number 3, and it is 15% of the content. These are your individual source matches, and those are the ones that we are interested in, and we are going to provide you with a guideline for the individual matches. The focus is not on the overall similarity index. Your individual matches are also not cumulative to your overall similarity index. If you were to revise and rework the content of your document, a brand new report is going to be generated. So Turnitin will ignore the draft submission you made, and it will generate a fresh report on your revised document. It will also, for instance, not reflect on your previous submission. In other words, it's not going to pick up content, and it is not going to look as if you plagiarized yourself. So you can do your draft, you can review the different findings in the document, you can follow up on them, and specifically on what the academic objectives were, the instructions from your lecturer, and you can address those in a revised version of your work. And then when you upload again, Turnitin is going to generate a fresh report for you. Now, the burning question always, is there an acceptable similarity index? No, there is not. Please, can I make this very clear? There is no such thing as an acceptable Turnitin percentage. Okay. The overall similarity index would simply indicate how much is not original. Okay. If there is plagiarism or any other form of academic misconduct present in the document, it will be unacceptable, regardless of what your overall index is. In other words, let's say for argument's sake, your overall similarity index is 12%. That might sound low. However, if there is misconduct identified in the document, it is still going to be unacceptable. But potentially you could have a similarity index of 20%. But within your document, all was duly acknowledged and referenced or cited as per your instructions from your lecturer, then that could be acceptable if the content has met with the academic objective for that specific submission or task that you had to fulfill. Okay, so please note that there is no such thing as an acceptable percentage. For your individual matches, There we provide you with a guideline. That guideline is 5%. It means that any one of them needs to be less than 5%. Okay, the focus is so that you would deliver original work, and that guideline would also help to protect you from incidentally overutilizing quotations or heavy reliance on one specific source. It would alert you, and you can then address that in that regard. So always paraphrase in your own words, use your quotes sparingly, and if you are in doubt, do cite your sources. Okay. So that is your guideline, and that is the one that you would look at. So from my example here, we can clearly see number 1, 26%. This is way above the 5% guide. So I need to go see how much did I use from this site. Even if I did quote all of the information, it is still too much from one specific source, and it did not contain any insights or critical review of the content within my submission. So my voice is not present within that specific submission. So this is your guideline. You can even see number 4 here, which is 9%. This is still above the 5% guide that is provided. So in your draft submission, you have an opportunity then to go and review these findings, and you can address them before you upload a revised version of your work. So that is the guideline that we do work with, and that would assist you in your learning process. Please do remember that report interpretation is done by your lecturer or supervisor. They will analyze the report to identify if there is any academic misconduct present in the submission or not. It is generally not necessary to rework every single highlighted portion of text. There are certain conditions where matching text might be allowed, and please make sure that you know how such text should be acknowledged in your document, because that 5% guideline that you have would allow for things like a template, a prescribed template that you had to use for your assignment or assessment. For example, it will include matches to subject terminology. It would even cover for the use of names and titles within the specific submission. So that is why that guideline is there. It is a very wide guideline, we know, but it does accommodate for the incidental findings like subject terminology, just as another example in that regard. But your report would always be analyzed by your lecturer or your supervisor. So for content support, please do make sure that you consult your lecturer or your supervisor, as well as your prescribed materials. For further guidance and help, you can visit the UNISA library pages. The LibGuides have very valuable resources on research ethics, on academic integrity, and on referencing styles. This is very important, and very often we see that this gets neglected, as that authors do not always use the correct referencing style. If you do use an improper referencing style, it is also not acceptable. Make sure that you use the appropriate referencing style for the specific subject field as per the requirements from your department here at UNISA. And this has brought me to the end of the presentation. Thank you very much for attending. As mentioned in the beginning, the recording will be provided to you, as well as a copy of the presentation, and the frequently asked questions list will also be made available for you. Thank you very much.